when the world has got you down. And
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and me, Don Priest.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susie Singer-Carter.
And I'm Don Priest, and this is Love Conquers Alls. Hello, Susan.
Donald, how are you?
I'm good. You know,
Good.
It's a Sunday. I actually was able to play a little golf today. My only day off in
I'm so
a while.
jelly.
I know you wanted to get out there with us, but oh well.
Yeah, it's my
So
favorite
be
thing to
it.
do. It's my favorite thing. Me and golf were like this.
Oh yeah. How are you today?
I'm okay. It's beautiful. It's sunny out. It's in Los
Yes.
Angeles, California, and it's actually beautiful. I'm looking out my window. So I have a plea to make to Riverside, our platform, who we really love. Can you freaking make this easier to get our guests on? Our guests, we love you, Riverside, but for God's sakes, it's not for the faint at heart here. Like, poor, all our guests are having such trouble getting to get connected.
But we're good to go now.
Yeah,
Huzzah.
yeah. No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just think about it. Might be worth it. Maybe, I'm just saying. Yeah, so I'm, again, still working very hard on the documentary No Country for Old People. If you're so inclined to want to change our long-term healthcare, nursing home healthcare system, come on and join us and head on over to National Consumer Voice for quality healthcare and, support us financially. We really need to get this project out. It's not a moneymaker for us, but it's going to be a life changer for everybody. So it's really important that we get this done. Our nursing home, skilled nursing, long-term nursing system is broken, and people are suffering every day. And we really need to make big changes, because if you haven't seen what it is like, you will at some point, and it will affect you or someone that you love. So we really need to do something about it. And that's
This is a good way of doing it. It's also it's 100% tax deductible, so win-win, and you can really be part of that change. And so
Yes.
we're hoping you come aboard. That would
Yes,
be
and
awesome.
thank you for everybody that has already supported us. And if you can't afford to provide a donation, I totally understand that, believe me. But you can still help by spreading the word. And if you happen to be on social media and you see a post, please share it. And that really is helpful as anything else. So really, really appreciate that. We have a great guest today.
We do.
Yeah.
Should I tell everyone about her?
Well, yeah,
Shall
but
I?
first, can I tell everybody, besides being whatever you're going to say, she's
Yes.
so much fun. We have so much
She's a
fun
good
with this
time.
lady. Yeah, we have a good
Yeah.
time with her. Like, literally, she leaves me the best messages on LinkedIn. I don't know. They're so much fun. It's like, who knew it was so crazy and wild in South Carolina?
Well, if you've
People
ever
are
been
having
there.
fun. People are having fun
They
in
are.
other places in the world, right?
Party time.
Party time. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah. Introduce her, Dawn.
I will indeed. Here we go. Ellen BELK is a silver living strategist with an impressive 20-plus years of operational experience in senior housing as a holistic dementia expert, author, trainer, and influencer. As a rising brand ambassador, Ellen is a trusted voice seeking to share information about technology products and other services benefiting aging consumers within her circle of influence and network. A recognized expert in aging and dementia, she captivates audiences with her authentic stories from personal experience in the trenches of elder care. Ellen believes together we are stronger, and she challenges those she encounters to be the change. Well, let's see if we can be part of that change, and welcome Ellen BELK. Hello, Ellen.
There she
Hello,
is.
Can you guys hear me?
Of course.
We can.
We're
You are here.
You're here. We hear you. We see you, and we're happy. We're happy to have you here. How are
Yay.
you today?
I'm well. This is such a treat. I have wanted to get into the Love Conquers Ulse bubble with the two of you, so yay me.
Yay! Well, yay
Welcome
us.
in.
Welcome in. Yeah, you're doing so much, and we have. It's really a rich community in the caregiving community, and we're seeing a lot more people come to the rise above the noise that are the really active and proactive and productive community members like yourself that are really doing some things and have some very very clear cut motivations and goals, right? Like you.
Yeah.
So and you have your Kim Academy online, and then which is an acronym, which is why don't you explain what that is first, because this is your baby.
It is. Well, first of all, I love having your creative voice in the Alzheimer's and dementia space, Susie, because once you got on my radar, I want to say it was probably almost 2 years ago. I could be a little wrong about that, but I feel like it was at that time when I saw your original film that told the heartwarming, your short film that told the heartwarming story.
My Mom and the Girl.
Mom
And the Girl.
I didn't even know you. You were not someone, and I found that somehow. I'm always researching. I'm always doing things for my craft because dementia is my thing, and it's important for me to know what's out there. And I passed that along instantly, and I did not know you because I was like, oh, this is so wickedly smart. It is so raw and gritty and real, and it's unlike all of the homogenized BS that's out there in the marketplace. But yet it was spirited, and Norma was amazing, and who wouldn't love her? And in watching that film, she represented the thousands of people I've taken care of in my 21 years. The best people I know, seriously. And I sit in C-suite meetings. The best and smartest and brightest people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing have been my friends with dementia. And your mom would have been perfectly in line with all of that. So this is a big treat for me to be on with you, but that's how you got onto my radar. And I had to have you in my world because listen, dementia is not sexy. Talking about dementia, even less sexy.
Yes.
And so it's not a conversation that people beg you to talk about at cocktail parties. But that being said, but yet meanwhile, cancer has found a way to amplify breast cancer most notably has found a way to amplify their messaging with pink ribbons, and now football players in the NFL are wearing pink shoes. It's the biggest stage imaginable, so they've done a good job marketing that. And the dementia world is not all Alzheimer's, and that's the other big. Everybody thinks, it's Alzheimer's, and no. That's one of over 100 ways you could have cognitive decline. So
right.
All of that being said, I appreciate you asking me to A, be on, and B, to talk about the Kim Academy. And you're right, it is an acronym to my company. My umbrella company, the company that I founded, is Keep in Mind Incorporated. Right. So keep in mind, when we're behind the scenes, we refer to it as Kim, just because it's easier to say. And so when the opportunity came for me to do some online training, we just went ahead and called it the Kim Academy, which falls in line with our brand. Yeah,
it's great, and I really appreciate your feedback on the film. It's the reason why we did the film was to touch other people in terms of a real experience, but a positive experience, because I learned as I went. With my mom, I didn't know a thing about Alzheimer's or dementia. Not a thing. Like you said, it's not sexy. It's not something that you go, oh, you know what? Today, let's go to the beach, and then we're going to go to the library and study dementia, okay? Because it's not, it's really not, on anybody's radar unless it has to be. And so I loved my mom so much, and I found her to love life so much that I wanted to share how she was navigating it and how she taught me to navigate with her, even though we both were novices at it. And that you don't have to throw in the towel, which most people do. So I wanted to do that, and it makes it to this day, like we did it 5 years ago, and to this day it still reaches people and touches people. So it really makes a difference to share your stories. At the end of the day, they're important.
Yeah.
They're important.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that. And I also wanted to comment on your point about the marketing of our diseases that we, are du jour, how do we get them into the zeitgeist and how do we make them sexy? Like breast cancer and, to a lesser extent, even lung cancer is like that. And Alzheimer's is better, but it's still not, we have the purple and, there's Alzheimer's Association, but it's still that other thing. It's other people's problems. And I think you're right. And that's with this documentary, what we're trying to do is realize that change only gets made by us, the public, at the end of the day.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we could do a whole thing on the lack of, like I said, you guys, like Don read, this is my 21st year as advocating and in the dementia space. And we haven't changed much in those 21 years. Alzheimer's needs to rebrand what no offense, and God help them, but hopefully who knows if they get to see this, I would say it to their faces. We need to rebrand a little bit because people only think that Alzheimer's is the thing. My dad had a dual diagnosis of Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. Do we ever talk about the other options that are out there? The vascular dementia. These are, so really truthfully, it's and all of these. Also, let me just also say, there is a Lewy body dementia foundation. There are these siloed fractions of the dementia experience in a whole, but there's no united front. And also everything is from an Alzheimer's Association perspective. It is so research driven, and guess what, y'all? The baby boomers have been turning 65 at the number of 10,000 a day since the year 2011. We're that deep into it. They're 77 this year. The oldest boomers are 77 in 2023. And and age is the primary indicator of those that go on to get either Alzheimer's or any other variety of dementia. So does anybody know that? Do we talk about that? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like we do to each other.
We do to each other. We talk within our community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
but
we talk.
That platform, though, they have such a megaphone, or they should, but it's always the walks, raise the money for the walks. And again, absolutely. But where's the education? It's not a this is coming down the pike disease as the boomers age anymore. We're in it. And so now it's like, what are we doing to amplify and educate the masses, which, by the way, 80% of all dementia care is delivered by family, close friends, and relatives. Right. all the shiny, beautiful luxury living places that are built on almost every street corner in the United States at this time, assisted living with memory care, they have a 20% piece of the dementia caregiving pie. So 80% of all dementia care is still being done by unpaid, uneducated, and I don't mean ignorant, I mean uneducated in the ways of dementia, family
untrained
caregivers.
Yeah.
So where's the push to get that massive section and sector of people the resources and the support that they need?
Right. I mean, I think about, Maria Shriver's HBO special, the mini series that she did on Alzheimer's, which had to be like, what was it, 15 years ago, which was very impactful. It got a lot of buzz. People watched it. It was good. It was people's stories, and they got to really see it. But that's the last thing we've seen that's been that big. Other projects, sorry, but still Alice doesn't represent what Alzheimer's is. And all the acting and the producing was all great, but the story was off. And and I say that with due respect, but it just there haven't been enough stories that really give us a good frame for what's going on and how to navigate it as caregivers, and not even caregivers, people that love these people and people that are experiencing it themselves. Because it's not like you get a diagnosis of dementia or any one of the dementias, and it's like, okay, now you have 5 months to live. No, you got a whole lot of life to live. And now what are you supposed to do with that, diagnosis? So is that what you're doing with the Kim Academy? Is this your goal, is to educate?
100%, exactly. And in easy, digestible ways. And here's the deal. One of the things that also has, this online platform is was brought to me during the lockdown of the world. The National Institute for Dementia Education approached me, and because they were following me online and my social media presence, which the only social media presence I have is on LinkedIn. And they reached out to me saying, and I'm talking dementia, and I'm raw, I'm unfiltered. I'm not your typical corporate stuff suit with my hand out saying, please donate to my cause and we're curing Alzheimer's. That's not who I am. I'm a boots on the ground. I've been in senior living operations for 21 years. Almost all of those 21 years have been on the dementia support side. I started on the care floor 21 years ago, and I wound my way up into senior vice president leadership roles in large companies. And I have cared for people from California, from LA to Rhode Island, and every state in between. I've trained staff in 39 different states of this country. Myself for the organization, I worked for big, large providers. And so I have been in the trenches, and then of course growing to a point where now I'm able to, I was a national director of memory support operations. I was the face of our organization of 100 communities, but I was also the one training our staff. And so I say all that to say I've been doing that for so long, but again, pre-COVID, or if I don't know if we're allowed to say, pre-lockdown, I was doing it in person and, flying here and there. I was a VIP standard gold medal winner in all the airlines because every week I was somewhere flying to go train people and be in person. When the lockdown happened and the National Institute of Dementia Education reached out to me, and they're like, we see people really engaging with your content. Like, how do these, and then they kind of zoned in on the sales professionals. They're like, what is that? And I go, well, I've trained salespeople for at this, probably 18 of my 21 years. And I'm the one that was creating what we do operationally, and I was helping them tell our story so that we had a tangible something to say when people were exploring whether they were going to move into our communities or not. Everybody can slap up 4 walls and a roof and say we serve 3 meals a day and we got some activity. Hello, that kind of is a thing. But when people who have their loved ones with cognitive decline and the varying types of cognitive decline, that my mom's, there could be an older 90-year-old woman in a wheelchair with Alzheimer's. That's one thing. But I've had 55-year-old 6 foot men with Lewy body dementia moving around the space, moving around the living space, and they might have been at Woodstock, and then they're still, they're living in the same living environment in a professional setting as the 90-year-old woman in the wheelchair. That takes a special kind of people to be able to navigate those nuances of the different types of dementia that you can have, the different generations that it touches. You know what I mean? So to not be trained is inexcusable. So the online thing, when they came to me and they asked me, the National Institute for Dementia Education, they were curious about me because apparently to them I was unlike anything that they had encountered. These are very research-driven, not in the trenches kind of people, and I'm a gal from the trenches. And I they gave me the opportunity to do training. I have created credentials, so professional credentials for people in long-term living. That's one facet of the Kim Academy online learning platform. The NIDE, they are the credentialing body. So that's real cool. I've got a track for salespeople. I'm in the process right now of creating a dementia culinary specialist, because guess what? You have to cook a certain kind of way as the dementia progresses. And you have to, people on the front end get, they can still eat with their knives and forks, might still be sitting at the same table in a professional setting of somebody who's in their later stage, and their eating dynamic is going to be different. And so often we segregate these people. Oh, you can't use your knives and forks anymore. You get booted to another room and we have staff. That's like very 1972 way of thinking. So I've had great success in leading people operationally, like, no. This is how we just adapt the food. So there's a culinary specialist credential, and then there's other leadership credentials that I'm working on in my collaborative relationship with the National Institute of Dementia Education. But what this world has opened up to me is that I now am recording all this on demand, and I'm a big personality. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
Well, you should come out of your shell, because you're very shy.
Yeah.
You're a little bit shy.
Demure.
And I think, yeah, demure is a good word.
I'm on the demure. I'm very passionate about this, but this is what. Listen, again, I've been doing it so long, it's like second skin to me. And the audience is I've had clients say, oh, no, we need you live. Ellen BELK live is better than not having you there. So I took all that. This is feedback I've gotten over the course of my career. And so when I'm recording these on demand classes, you see me, I'm in the screen with you. And this big personality is, I'm not reading things off of cue cards. I'm not reading every bullet point on the PowerPoint. It's this personality weaving in my experiences, this brashness that I have, but it's the truth. It's exactly who I am, and I've done it professionally, and then of course I did it for my own father. So I weave in stories, and it's getting great feedback, because so often, if you even get dementia training in a professional setting, it's a DVD that somebody pops in, they leave you in the room alone, and they do it once, like when they onboard you. The Kim Academy online platform is just going to be this evergreen, constantly evolving, me uploading more and more content, and families too. This is an opportunity for me. I've dealt with professional providers for so long. I'm excited for the opportunity to speak in my own voice that's real, with the background that I have, to walk families through the journey as well. The biggest thing that I want to leave everybody with is dementia is not the diagnosis. And people are like, what are you talking about? Dementia is the diagnosis. I'm like, is cancer the diagnosis? And when you go to the doctor and you get you're told you have cancer, is that where the conversation ends? No, they tell you it's breast cancer, it's lung cancer, it's pancreatic cancer, and then you get treated appropriately. We have done an awful job. Another messaging miscue is that people think dementia is full stop. No. Alzheimer's is very different than Lewy body, which is very different than vascular, which is very different than Korsakoff, and I could go on and on. You need to know what kind of dementia your loved one is dealing with, and that's an important message that I will use this platform to get out as well.
Well, I want to break it. I was going to say, can we break it down for us in terms of how are they? What is motivating these facilities or these companies to bring you on? Because, not to be skeptical, but the point is that these are money making, that's their businesses. And so what motivates them to want to bring in Ellen to come and teach their staff and their residents and families how to deal with dementia? There must be an upside for them. And if there isn't, what have you presented to them? And then I don't mean that there isn't an upside, that they're not, they're being myopic. So did you have to convince them, or B, was it already in their business plan?
Oh, you're so cute and naive when you think that they want to spend money on training.
Exactly. That's what. Well, I'm just trying to. I'm giving them the little, benefit of the doubt.
Slight.
I love that sweet Pollyanna viewpoints you share. I get it. Well, here's the deal. So it's easy. It's an easier sell now that I'm online. You don't have to pay for me to fly places, which of course I love because we're having problems with keeping the airlines going as well. So and it's so much more affordable. I mean, once I record everything, now you're just paying for the student cost of the student to have their butt in my seat, and again, my virtual seat. So it's significantly less expensive. But let's be honest. There's a elevating the dementia IQ of all of these cohort groups, be they family members, be they, providers, be they the investors that build the buildings. They're the ones that they just believe if they build it, you will come. And it's a real estate adventure. That's the unfortunate thing I've seen over the years is when I first got in this 21 years ago, there was faith-based, there was not-for-profits. There was husbands and wives or families that built a building because there was no place for their grandma to live. So it was very purpose-driven. That shift, and I've been part of the shift, that shift probably around 2010, 11, 12, that's when we went through a very seismic shift of all the great intentions and the one-offs. People owned like one or two buildings. Now you've got just giant investors. It became if any of you have lived through the .com, I was in New York making .com money, living in the .com industry, and made the most money at that time that I'd ever made. And then crashed with everybody else because it was this .com on many levels, regardless of what part of the .com industry you were in, it turned out to be smoke and mirrors. It was smoke and mirrors. Well, I'm not saying necessarily that senior housing is a smoke and mirrors, but real estate venture capitalists realized around 2010 and 11 that there was money to be made. And the inconvenient truth was that, and there's some old people that happen to live in these buildings. So they're building them, they're flipping them. And every time you flip a property and sell it to the next billionaire that's got their, wants a piece of the pie, that really disrupts the organizational operation. Not 100%. It depends. I've worked for some good management companies where we were able to keep things pretty even keel. But that disruption just tends to... it does tend to, even in the best case scenario, if you come in with all the right intentions and you're part of a good group of management that's been hired because these investors, they don't run these buildings, they hire us to do it. They just want to make the profit. So this is when the industry really shifted. So to your point about how, but fast forward to now, that global shutdown that we all experienced, I will say, it impacted everyone in many different ways. But from a senior housing perspective, boy, oh boy, did it illuminate some of the things that those of us on the inside, we knew very well were already existing. But now when you shut out families and they can't have access to their elder and they see a decline the people on the inside of the operations, they were all freaked out like the world is now watching. I was cheering it because, to your point on the front end of this conversation, Susie, you said it takes us, meaning us, the bootstrappers in the world, not in the C-suites, not counting our dollar bills. We're the ones living. When you educate the populace, who's now impacted by the du jour thing, and in this case, cognitive decline. Yep. Oh man, does that groundswell come up? And I'm here for it now. So that's why I'm excited about 2023 because the boomer consumers are the children of this silent generation that are, with us, but they're also becoming our residents as well. And so these boomer partners or loved ones of the other boomer who's now having to advocate for their spouse or partner or whatever, and the boomers who are advocating for their elder parents who they couldn't see. I'm here for the boomers to be engaged because If we know anything about them from generationally, they make things happen. And so with their voices being amplified, their expectations are significantly higher than the silent and the greatest generations who we've had the privilege to care for. But let's be honest, those were generations that went along to get along. They didn't question authority. They didn't give pushback. And God bless them, right? But the boomers come in with a whole different set of toys in their toy box.
Yeah, they're high. Yeah. They're used to a different form, different style of living. They're used to having their stuff, and and they're going to all of a sudden say, and suddenly they're not going to go in and say, okay, I don't have that anymore. Whereas the generation prior, they grew up in general not having, and so it wasn't as big a shift. This is going to be a huge shift.
So let me simplify. Is that just to go back to how you got their interest at these facilities that otherwise just want to get their checks and move on? And so how did you get them to engage with you?
Oh, honey, make no mistake. This is an ongoing hurdle. I've got some clients, but I have clients that I had from before that still want me in presence, and I do things over Zoom. This Kim Academy online learning platform is just, we're launching, it's launched. I've got a couple classes on now, but so I'm in constant sales mode. To your point, what's the sell? The sell is, guess what, guys? Your marketplace expects your employees to understand what they're dealing with. Would you go to a car, take your car to get fixed for people that flip burgers for a living? No, you go to where the mechanics are. And people and the boomer consumers are not, first of all, no one wants to hand over their loved one to us in senior housing. Because again, remember, 80%, especially on the dementia side, 80% of all dementia care is still being done by families. It is a hard sell to pull them out of their home environment. But the boomer consumers are more open to it, but by God, they want to know, they're going to ask a lot more questions. How are you going to care for my loved one's specific dementia? Are you going to treat them like the 90-year-old grandma? And my husband's only 79. How does that look and feel? Tell me what we want that consumer to be that inquisitive.
Okay, but can I play devil? Can I just throw something in there? When you say the 90-year-old woman like that, we need to also not paint a certain color of one color on a 90-year-old person in a wheelchair, because my mom was 89 and she wasn't ready to go. And I'm saying that this is another issue. There's ageism and ableism, and that we need to look at people individually with their disease. Some people fare better than other people. Some people are, accelerate in their disease. And so someone who is 90 in a wheelchair with Alzheimer's, their aging may have be normal aging. Their Alzheimer's is not accelerating as and so what happens is they get lumped. It's just like it's a blanket lump of like this. That's who they are. They shouldn't get the same amount of treatment as the 79-year-old. But I think what we really need to do is patient-centered, patient-centered care, really, and also understanding each person as an individual. And I know, sorry folks, it takes time. Sorry providers, it's not the providers want to provide. It's the people that are owning these facilities that don't want to take the time or the money and the energy to put into it. But we do need to individualize the care. Has to be, because otherwise we're still doing a disservice to our people that have dementia. And so I'm just throwing that out there because I come from an experience of someone who was of an older generation, but still was enjoying her life and deserved to have the life that she could live till when she was ready to go.
Yeah, and I appreciate you. Your mom, I didn't even think she was that old because she presents so young to me. But to your point, the reason I have made this I've used this example a couple of times in our conversation is, first of all, not because I was marginalizing a 90-year-old woman in a wheelchair. I'm trying to get people to visualize the dynamic. All individuals, and that's the other thing. A 90-year-old woman in a wheelchair is going to have that person and a 60-year-old or 72-year-old person who was at Woodstock. those are very different people. Even if they both have Alzheimer's, they're very generationally, they're different. Their personhood is so different. So I use it, I guess I do it so often, and people know, and who know me know, but the idea is, back to your point, these are two very separate people. Whether the woman it has nothing to do with her being in the wheelchair. I also, from an operational perspective, think of that's someone that depending on the dementia of the very able-bodied younger person, we have to protect the person that's not as physically mobile, because again, if there's more of an aggressive dementia in the 77-year-old gentleman who fought in Vietnam,
Exactly,
and that we need to protect the 90-year-old men and women, or the people later in their journey. That's the other thing. You meet one person. You meet the one woman in the 90-year-old in the wheelchair, or the man. You meet the 77-year-old man or woman with some form of dementia. You've met one person,
right?
Because to your point.
And I was just gonna say, here's the thing. Like, I noticed, Dawn, you can back me up on this because you saw it too with my mother when she was in assisted living, and it was all memory care, which is there's a franchise called Silverado, and they were one of the first here in Los Angeles that were only memory care. At one point, there was one of the residents who, Fred McNeil, who was a football player. He was a very famous football player in terms of, I think he was in the Super Bowl two times.
The Super Bowl, yeah.
Yeah, and he had ALS and
ALS and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But it was
Alzheimer's
not Alzheimer's, but it was from the CTE. It was,
Yeah.
it was from,
chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and he was the first person actually diagnosed with it while he was living.
Yes.
They usually do it post that. Yes.
There's a group of about 7 of them. I have one of them here at Joe de la Malier in the Carolinas. They were part of that Dr. Amalu original. Anyway, back to you.
I was just going to say is that
Perfect example, though. Perfect example.
No, it's perfect because he was 62 and my mom was 82 at the time. And I went every Sunday to the when they did music with the piano player, and I would take up when the piano player took a break, I would continue. And Fred and my mom had a love affair. I don't mean sexually or anything. They loved each other. They sang together. My mom was a singer, as you know. Fred loved, like, his favorite thing. That was his thing. Like, give me karaoke, and he wanted to sing My Way every time. And so I brought in the sheet music for My Way. And he just said, "I just love your mother," and she was in a wheelchair. And they
would hold hands while they listened to music and hold. It was just beautiful.
And he was married. He had children. The whole thing. But he found a kismet with my mother.
Kindred spirit.
Yeah,
Kindred spirit,
and
yeah.
that's right. And so and he died within the year. And my mom lived. Yeah. So I'm just saying. So. What me as the novice, I knew nothing about it. All I knew is that they were important to each other, and that commingling, which you brought up in the beginning, of saying, like, why are we removing people from the dining room because they can only eat? Some people can, like my mom started to eat with her hands because she couldn't manage the fork, and then rock and roll with it, because what's wrong with it? I mean, that is what it is. If you are a paraplegic, you can only get around with a wheelchair. So that's the way it is.
And they separated there. They had the less, like the less advanced down on first floor. More as you went up the floors, so it got more and more advanced.
And I get the aggressive. I think there's a time to separate.
When it's danger, that's one thing.
But it's what we do with our children who are challenged or have delays in their development. We try not to take them out of the mainstream because we want them to mainstream, because it's important. You're living in this world, and that is what it is. We are by nature mainstreamed. why would we want to separate people, you know?
Well, and the other thing, dining is a really big, that's the next credential I'm working on, because it is such an important part of the care environment and in life in general. I mean, if all three of us, if I was in LA with you guys and after we recorded this, we'd go out and have maybe a bite to eat together and we'd socialize. Yep. Think of your, even if you have a dysfunctional family, you still remember family dinners. We commune over food. And so it doesn't stop because you can't remember what your children's names are. Here's the other thing. You're still a person. This is another big area that I get so passionate about, is the thing that sucks for all these levels of cognitive decline and the different ways you have it is it's happening between your ears. You don't have a third eye. You don't have your head shaved in a pink ribbon, which indicates, okay, this woman might have had a mastectomy. I mean, there's no outward, if you had COPD and you had to walk around with an oxygen, we wouldn't go up to those people and be like, hey, I'm running a 5K next weekend. Why don't you join me? We wouldn't do that because there's an outward sign of something that we all are conditioned to know. Breathing problem. Not going to run a 5K with me. But we don't have that with often, unless there's other comorbidities involved underlying the dementia. But there are some of the people with memory impairment in the secured memory area are physically actually more, it's not uncommon that I've seen, are more physically able than the residents in the assisted living side who have, COPD, uncontrolled diabetes, they're obesely overweight, they walk with walkers, and the people who with cognitive decline, often, again, I don't want to generalize, everybody is unique, but to your point, that's where some of the problem is because there's nothing that outwardly shows up like, hey, flashing lights, dementia. So therefore, it's another reason why people need to be so savvily trained, because, and you need to spend time with people, because everybody, Norma, I'm sure, when Norma started singing on the bus and she's flirting with the guy and, she was able to do it in that moment, that person may or may not have, they just would have thought she was a flirty older woman. But if he spent more time around her, like you guys did, then it would become clear, like, oh, something's not, something's a little off, not sure what it is, but we would be more gentle with her because we would appreciate, okay, but you, even in a long-term living environment, you gotta, that's why Norma's journey was one way, Fred's journey is another, Sally, Frank, Mabel, everybody's going through it differently, different types of dementia, different progression. So you have to have a dementia IQ to be able to take care of all these varieties of, it's why when you get breast cancer, you don't go to the pancreatic cancer clinic. You go to the breast cancer clinic. But they don't do that in dementia. We keep them all together, which is fine, but that's why the education is so important.
And I think what your academy is important, what you're doing is important, because by educating the people that are housing our loved ones, that are putting, this is their business. This is what they tell us, say like a Silverado that says we are memory care experts. This is all we do. Then you must be a memory care expert. You must be that. What your program is so important, because it's important to educate, and what's even more important is to destigmatize a cognitive decline, because when, like you said, to your point about, the way something manifests, if someone is losing their hair because of their cancer, so we see it, we know what it is, and there's an immediate, an empathy towards that, an understanding. We don't have patience for people that are losing their cognitive abilities. We marginalize them. We feel like there's no worth. They're losing their worth. They're losing their value as a human being. But they're really not, because other things are taking over. It's what I always say about children. We give children grace to develop. So we don't say to them, come on, stupid, you got 2 legs, walk. At a 9-month-old. We know that they're not developed. You can't walk at 9 months, unless they're, extraordinary. I did walk at 9 months, but I'm just saying. Just say, no, but
That's neither here nor there. Neither here nor there.
it's just a little anecdote, but
We don't try to talk them into doing things they can't, and I think
and we also give them grace, and we say we're very much supportive of them, and we say, we celebrate what they can do. That's what we need to do with people that have cognitive decline. We need to celebrate what they can do and get off of what they can't do, understand what they can't do, and adjust to it. That's all. Otherwise, there's no reason, I'm sorry I say this all the time, to keep them alive, because we're doing them a disservice, and everybody else, that becomes, at that point, they're just making money for somebody else. And that's the crude way of saying it. I loved my mom so much, and I was there a lot and saw other people with cognitive decline, and it really needs to be changed, the way that we perceive it and look at it and respect it.
I will say my dad was 82 when he got when I fought hard for him to get the diagnosis, because that's the thing. I believe you have to have the diagnosis. You have to know what you're working with. You have to know what type of dementia. Anyway, so I did all that, and he again was he was seen by a neurologist who specialized in movement. So that there's all kinds of specialties. Anyway, so Dad had a Lewy body dementia with Parkinson's. The Lewy body was the dominant. This isn't a master class, but I could go on about how do you know. Those are two dementias that do often commingle. And again, for other reasons that we don't have time for now. But you can have Lewy body, you can have Parkinson's, and they don't have to be together. In my dad's case, though, it's not uncommon for those two particular, pathologically. I'm not a scientist. I just know that I deal with this. But why am I telling you all that? So Dad's dementia, again, different layer of the brain. It's a subcortical dementia. Alzheimer's is what we call a cortical dementia, top layer of the brain. So Lewy body is subcortical, right there. Not going to be the same disease journey.
No,
they're still going to have some cognitive decline. They're still going to have movement issues, but it's a totally different trajectory and pathology. Mm-hmm. But when he got that diagnosis, the neurologist was very clear, and my dad was a former athlete himself. Had been bowling into his late 70s. He got diagnosed at 82 with this. And she had him on the treadmill. He was going to a Parkinsonian class from the day of the diagnosis, or around the time of the diagnosis. Mom was taking his 82-year-old ass to the YMCA, and he was in a treadmill class that was for people with Parkinson's as part of their disease journey. I took him to Trader Joe's. He's pushing the cart at Trader Joe's, and I'm doing the shopping, and he's asking for the cheese doodles. I'm like, absolutely, 3 bags of cheese doodles for Dad. We lived out loud. I wasn't going to send him into the store, and I wished him well. I was with him.
Yes, right. Because you knew his limitations. That's all.
He pushed the cart. I was doing the shopping. He wanted the Fig Newtons and the cheese doodles, whatever. And he still was going to the Y. Now, of course, they were still going to church. Now, of course, as his disease journey progressed, but I'm talking this like 2 years this went on,
right,
in varying state. And then we had to start to dial things back, just because it was a little more stressful from his 80. Now he's 80, he's 82, 3. Now he's 84. My mom is 85. She's moving a little slower. So going to church and all that entailed was a little problematic. So guess what? They're Catholic. Their neighbors would bring the communion to my mom and dad. So there was a little community, and there was a circle of love that was surrounding these people. You have to do that to continue. I'm all about the idea that literally can slow the progression. When you get the diagnosis and you all start locking the people into their bedrooms and keeping the shades down, and we're always crying around him because Dad got dementia. Well, geez, what do you think that's doing to his psyche? Not to mention his heart and his soul and the thing that is part of his personhood. Now all of a sudden we're treating him like he's got six ears, and we're going to be embarrassed to be seen with him. We had years of engagement in living out loud with my dad. And so I say that to people like, don't be part of the problem. Don't be part of the problem. There could be years of still vacationing, still having the grandkids over. I could go on and on. So I think you get the point, but that's
Yeah.
another myth that needs to be busted.
Totally, and I'm guilty of it. When I moved my mom in the year that my movie is based on, I had just gone through a divorce. I was moved into this work live loft area that was basically like a movie studio because a lot of people in the industry were there. So we had valet parking and all that stuff. And I thought, am I crazy? Like, I'm moving in my mom, who's very social and outgoing, and everyone's going to go crazy because they're going to think she's great at first. And then they're going to go, what's wrong with her? She's repeating herself, right? Well, what happened is that she's so endearing. Everybody knew she had Alzheimer's. I didn't tell them. They were all had her back big time, as you'll see in the movie with the guy who was the valet parker. Because at first, my mom used to go to them, get my car for me, and they'd go, "What car? You didn't park a car." The hell I didn't. I'll have you arrested. God damn it! Right? And then they were like, "Oh, okay, she has okay." But you know what? And then they started. I didn't tell them. They figured that out on their own. And when Mom had to move into assisted living, they all missed her. So we can't underestimate the hearts of people because, which I did, because I thought, oh, I'm doing everyone else a disservice. I'm embarrassed.
You're
Maybe
embarrassed,
yeah.
Sure.
I didn't have to be because everybody else, for the most part, sure, there's going to be idiots that are going to go, oh my God, bye, but for the most
with
part,
everybody in life. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to deal with that no matter what.
Right. But for the most part, people were like embracing and understanding and empathetic and really just accepted my mom for who she was and for what she still had. And so, in fact, she even recorded there's a group from Mexico that were next door to me who were very famous in Mexico with a singing group, and they fell in love with my mom because my mom sang, as you know, and so she was on one of their songs and in one of their videos. I was like, "Go,
she
Mom!"
wandered over to their studio,
and my mom's like, "I'm a singer. You need me?" And they're like, "Yes, we do. Yes, we do." And then she met.
That's the stuff I'm talking about. Those moments of brilliance. I wouldn't change that for anything. And I pity the people. I pity people who don't find joy and love in what you just described, because it's so good for the soul. How great for her. How normal that was for her in that moment. She was doing the Alzheimer's doesn't touch the personhood of the heart and soul. She was a singer. She was a singer till the last day she breathed on earth. That doesn't change because the cognition changes. I'm sorry.
No.
If it just doesn't. There are things that's one of the biggest parts of my job. When I was now I'm a consultant, but when I was in the day-to-day for 19 of the 21 years I've been in this industry, I was the one that would always get the phone call. Hey, we've got this challenging Don. Don's a challenging guy, and we can't this, we can't that. So I would get the phone calls, and I'd be like, well, tell me about Don. Why we can't get him to shower. The daughter's threatening to move him out because he won't take showers or whatever. I mean, just insert issue here. I always started with, tell me about Don. I didn't care what Don was doing. Tell me about Don. Because when they said, well, I just used Don, but I'm going to use a real example, Jim. Jim was a Texan in one of my Houston buildings. I'm 6 feet tall. He made me look short. He was probably 6'5", lanky, Southern Texan man. And he was an escape artist. He was the guy that was, him and his wife, Annie, had moved in. And he was very tall, so he was very lean. But staff is looking at a tall, big dude. And he was trying to always get out the door. Got to get out of here, which, by the way, is not uncommon. In general, because you're ripping people out of the familiarity of their home. So I come there. This was a problem. We had 2 of them living with us. So, of course, this was a good community. And I fly to Houston. I meet Jim. And the first thing, I come through the door. I've literally just come from the airport. I've driven straight to the community. I come through the sealed doors of the memory care area, and Jim is standing on the other side. The 6'5" guy greets me, and and of course I'd been prepped that this might happen. The first thing he says to me is, "I want to get the hell out of here." I said,
"That's right."
And I said, all right, well, let's go. Where do you want to go? And of course, by this point, the staff knew me. But I was so quick. And I'm like, let's go. And he and I walked outside. He's with me. I'm not opening the front door and saying, good luck to you, Jim. He's with me. We walk into the courtyard. I didn't even have time for anyone to download. This is how fast this happened. I knew he had been a farmer. So we go outside, we're walking, and I shit you not, you guys, as we're walking in the Texas sun, he is pointing out, well, that flower is blardy, blardy, blar. And he picks some fruit thing. I don't know what, who knows what it was. It was some kind of something. He's like, here, put this on your windowsill. It's not ripe yet. This is a man with Alzheimer's who wants to get the hell out. But here we were outside. It was almost like that wasn't happening. Like we were two friends.
That's his cognitive reserve. We all have cognitive reserve, and that's his. Yeah.
Exactly. So I said to them, guys, and then I said, what? And I didn't know he was a farmer at that point. But I figured he was so adept with his conversation. So of course I go inside. Now he's fine. After we talk and we walk, we go back inside. He's fine. I had some time to get some downloads, and come to find out, not only had he been a farmer, like literally they took him off the farm because him and his wife both had Alzheimer's disease, and his two sons, this was important that they be protected. And he also was in the army and in some so he was a military guy, and whatever he did for the military, he was traveling constantly. The sons even said it, even when they were born, he was gone all the time. So this was a free-spirited, wide open guy. Yeah. And here we are trying to lock him behind locked doors. So
right.
And he would continue to try to get out if he would continue, because all you did is you relieved that pressure, so to speak. And that's why when you don't do that, and there's no reason you can't do that or some form of it on a daily or every other day, whatever. So they, why do they keep trying to get out? Because they don't have their life anymore.
Right.
And the things that they try to connect with, they don't have
There's
anymore.
nothing to connect with. There's nothing to connect with that grounds them.
From their
right?
life.
And
from their being.
And sorry, those little, glass curios that they put in front of everyone's room with a couple photos, and that's not enough. That's not enough. It needs to feel like home. We're not institutionalizing these people. This is where they're living for the next 10 years, maybe, or you know what I mean. That's
what we want.
God willing,
yeah.
And so and they will live nice and long if they're happy, and. It is the cognitive reserve is what you're talking about, and that,
100, it's not, that's where the disease does not touch. You're still in there. You might not be able to articulate it, but that's why we need to be, again, that's why I know Silverado well. I know all the good intentions and all that. But regardless, whoever, you cannot be a secured memory support area, neighborhood, community, purpose-built, and not be able to have conversations like I'm having right now. I mean, you have to be able to calm the family and say, oh yeah, no, we're good with that. My dad's a former farmer and he traveled the world. We got you. We're gonna whatever that looks like, we roll with that here because we understand. I've had, you just name it. I always start with, tell me about the person. We were being sued. We had an employee in Utah that was threatening to sue us because there was a gentleman in the memory support area. I call it memory support because I believe care is so 1992 as well. Support is what we really do. What I'm talking about, how I'm describing all this, I'm supporting people. That's how I look at what we should be calling memory support. But I had an employee in a Utah community. Once again, I get called out there. She's threatening a lawsuit. She's a frontline caregiver because we had a gentleman who was urinating. Well, he was pulling out his package to urinate. And do you know this chick was trying to sue us or him or something for sexual harassment? There you go. Some serious education needed to happen in this one. And sure enough, I go there and I say to the leaders, I met with the leaders first because this was a little dicey. And I said, tell me about this gentleman. And I know it's weird. It's not like I only care for farmers, but this gentleman happened to be a farmer as well. And and they're telling me about another example of a farmer that was in those fields until not too terribly long before he was then moved into our community. I said, hey guys, I'm spitballing here, but if you're a farmer and you're a man and you're out in the fields for what, 10, 11, 12 hours a day, where
You're
do you think
peeing
he's
in the
going to
fields.
bathroom?
Yeah,
Where
he's
are
peeing
we?
in the fields. Yeah.
And they all looked at me like I had just cured dementia. And my dad, God love my dad. I swear to God, my dad used to say this to me in his Cognitively Intact. He knew what I did I was in the business 10 years before my dad got dementia. And he used to say to me, Ellen, if people knew how to do their jobs, you wouldn't have a job. That was my dad's line with me, and how right he was. This was a perfect example of that. I needed to fly from South Carolina to Utah to have a conversation about what this guy did for a living, and they looked at me like bells and whistles were going off, like, oh. So I said, okay, and I will also tell you, it's not uncommon. Men in general, if you can't get to if the man is tugging on the front of his pants, no, he's not masturbating. He might be quickly trying to get his zipper undone, and stop thinking that these are sexually deviant people. We need to know that there's tells. I guess I will also say there's tells, especially with men. If they're tugging, if they're pushing, if they're trying to adjust their belt, they probably need to use the restroom, and we as professionals need to say, "Hey, Don,"
Or they have a UTI, maybe.
Or "Hey, Don, I'm heading to the restroom. You want to join me?" And then, of course, when you and I get there, I'm like, "Well, I'm going to use it. Why don't you use it too?" I mean, there's such a way to finesse all this,
Right?
Techniques. Yeah.
Again, I go back to children. It's back to children when you see a little boy who's 3 years old and he's tugging at his pants, and you go, "Do you have to go pee pee?" And they go,
Exactly.
"Yes." And they did, and I mean, and again, that's not infantilizing them, because we're respecting the level that they're at, and we're actually respecting them is what we are. I think
Maintaining their dignity.
we're maintaining. And, you know, there was a gentleman at Silverado with my mom that just touched my heart so much. He was the coolest dude there. He walked around. He was definitely an artist. He had his long hair flopped in his face. He probably was in his late 70s. Very, very nonverbal, but walked around a lot. Thin. He looked like a Jack Kerouac kind of character, you know. And he had he always wore like a cool like jacket, you know, over his shirt, and black jacket. And he would look around in the dining room almost with tears in his eyes at the really bad like Michael's art, you know, the art, you know, the mass-produced art on the wall.
Nonsensical, yeah.
And he'd look at it, and he literally had tears in his eyes. And I go over to him, and I'd always hug him and say, "It's gross, right? That's not art." And he'd just look at it just so disappointed. And I said to the administration, "Can we get him some sketch paper and some, you know, instruments to do art, because he's walking around and he was drawing on napkins. Remember, Dawn? He was sketching pictures of my daughter and of me, and he was such a good artist, and I could see the pain, because I'm very tuned into artists, and so I saw his pain, and he was such a happier person when he finally got some instruments to work with, you know, but it was painful for him. Here he's living in this environment that just is so against his aesthetics. And that is who he is.
But this brings up a big question. This brings up a huge question, because, you know, you talk about the staff, you know, getting to know who these people are and being able to react to that but what's the reality of that when you have so few staff members for so many people, and they're in and out, and it's not the same people all the time? And how do you get around that? How do you get to know these people and then react and allow, you know, like you did, you took that man outside. Well, they're not going to do that. They're not. I know this. They're not going to do that. They're not going to ask the person about they don't find out enough about them. But even if they did, how is that come into practice?
Well, the sad thing is they absolutely should be doing that, because in the long run, it will actually make their job easier. Jim, in this case, Jim in Houston, here's the other thing. This is the other BS thing. They had a secured memory support courtyard. They literally could, and they did. This community was a good community. In fact, I want to tell you, I actually show this. There's a picture that I share to this day of what ultimately happened here. I met with that. It was a young executive director. He was hungry, and I love that. He's not in the industry anymore. I've kept up with him. He's unfortunately in real estate now, so that breaks my heart. Because this executive director, I met with him and his team, and I said, we got to give Jim, get the Boy Scouts to come here and do a raised planter. Jim needs to get his hands in the dirt, and you guys need to be okay with that. That door you could open, you could see it. It was a courtyard with glass doors. You could get him out there, let him go out there. And obviously, if it's 900 degrees out, I mean, let's be smart. But these people weren't dinglings. They wanted to solve this problem. Do you know what they ended up doing? They ended up tearing up. That ED asked the maintenance guy to pull up about a good 30-foot in circumference bush area of their courtyard that had bushes in it. And do you know that team, that memory care director, she and Jim, it was Houston, it was in an urban area of Houston. They walked the less than half mile to the Home Depot together, her and him, that he picked out the plants. And he had a garden. They sent me a picture several months later, and I show it I end most of my trainings this way as I get people to understand how simple. This is why I'm holistic. These are non-pharma things. Jim's garden was off the charts. It was green.
It's
and
medicine.
Medicine.
It's medicine.
So to answer your question, Don, the system's broken, obviously, because you're right. I am of the belief the reason there's a lot of high turnover is because we're not giving people the tools that they need to do their job. You know, you're asking single moms often, or people with multiple other jobs, because we may not pay them enough. B, they're burned out. It's tough. Listen, you're exhausted. I'm good at the job, and it's tiring. But when you are on a team of people that we're all rowing the boat the same way, and if I have to tap out, I got to tap Susie. I got to say, hey, I can't get Millie to take her shower. Tap you. You're it. You go in. You have to have this camaraderie. You have to have a team approach, which is, again, that's the team. I have that. The team I have an entire branded training for frontline care staff called the team approach. And in my world, team stands for together executing a mission. Because the $9 an hour frontline employees are the face of our frickin' companies. So the fact that we do not train, they should have the most training. And when they have the training,
like CNAs, same thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. The CNAs, they should have the most. They should be like PhD level trained. And I don't mean I just mean on this kind of stuff I'm talking about, which is why this Kim Academy online academy. I will literally tell, I could give 10-minute little snippets of this type of stuff that we're talking about, and light bulbs are going to start going off in people's brain. And once you hear it, and once you practice it, it starts to make sense. So to answer Don's question, we have to allow the staff. You know what? I know you've got 4 more people that you got to bathe today, but we maybe somebody else has to come in and tap out while that employee then goes and opens the door. You're saying that they're not going to do it. That's because we make them feel like they shouldn't or can't do it. Hey, if the laundry doesn't
staffing.
Get done,
It's having enough staff.
It's training. It's training, and it's training, like you said. It's training, and it's making it incentivizing the front line to want to be able to do that job well, and not make it hard for them to do that. Not give them other goals that they must accomplish. So if you have to choose between, someone having a pleasant time and not having an anxious, outburst and taking a shower, let's deal with that first. Let's figure that out. Because here's the thing, we're still dealing with individuals. I keep saying that and not everybody gets along with everybody. Maybe Jim doesn't like Janet, and he doesn't want, Janet rubs him the wrong way, and that's okay. He's entitled. So maybe he does like Steve a lot better, and Steve is his person now.
100%.
Steve needs to be his person, because we cannot lump everybody like this is it. And otherwise it's institutionalizing, and it's.
Well, and that's what it is. And
not a way
that's
to
when
live.
you see them sitting everybody they bring them into one room, they turn on TV, and there it is.
that's where everyone sits for the next
That's what
3
I'm
hours
saying,
in front of the TV.
Ellen. That's what I'm saying. It's like it isn't a life. That's not living. That is not living, folks. That's not living. You know, I saw that. It's not living. So I really commend you. We could talk for another 2 hours, but we can't. And I commend you for what you're doing. I want to support you.
I love sharing this space with you because we're coming at it, but we are two creative beings, and I just think this industry, elder care in general, obviously dementia care is my passion, but hello, you know, I think it just needs new voices and new energy. What we've done up until this point, you guys need to step aside. Let this new generation of voices and passion and motivated spirits, let us take over and watch how magical this can be.
And it
Yeah.
needs creativity.
We need creativity.
It needs creativity.
It
because
really does. And it needs a heart.
New way of thinking.
We need to lead with our hearts, everybody. This is why Love Conquers All is so important, because it is. It's what you do when you lead with your heart. That's, you know, again, back to children. If babies don't get love, they will die. And we saw it in COVID. We saw it. People that were isolated died not from COVID, from isolation. Well, we're isolating people without isolating them when we put them in an institution and we homogenize their care. If we can't do that.
Here's the other thing. Listen, back to the profit over people, because this personality that I have now. Granted, depending on which C-suite I was in, which owner group I knew how to tamper this back, which killed me because I had to change who I was to try to soft sell and tap dance to get some initiative forward that was the right thing to do.
Right.
That I had to speak in like. But you're going to make so much money if we do it this way. Okay, whatever. You have to
That's
play the
admirable.
game.
That's admirable. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I've never deviate from day one of when I was on the care floor myself to this moment where now I consult. My end user are my friends, most of which now at this stage will never meet me. Those are my friends that I am advocating for. So if it takes some soft shoe selling, but I will say you absolutely, if profit is your thing, which of course, listen, I'm a capitalist. I don't work for free either, but you can make money doing it the right way. And in fact, you probably, if you do really do it the right way and train your people and invest in their success, and they're the face of your company, and it's a ripple effect in the communities. And when I say the communities, I mean the surrounding areas of where your brick and mortar buildings are. You're going to start to have waiting lists because you will look and feel, and it will be a tangible differential that people can almost smell and touch and feel it in their heart when they enter your building. Something different is going on here. I'm telling you, I've led those teams. I know it's true, but you got to be committed, but you can make money, and then people stay longer. Residents are happier. Their length of stay is longer. Families are happy. They're out in their cocktail parties referring their friends to come to your building. It really is not this complicated.
It's not that complicated. Again, give people a purpose. Give people a purpose, like you gave Jim. Give people a purpose. Some people, when my mom was becoming, immobile, there were other people that were residents that would come in and help my mom and go, "Come on, Norma, you got it." And it was like, and then you'd have the facility going, "No, Lisa, leave Norma alone." And I was like, "No, let Lisa deal."
They're afraid of litigation, or of being
whatever.
sued.
And Lisa would help my mom walk because she knew that she could still walk, but they'd rather her be in the chair because it's less
easier.
liable. It's easier. So, give them a purpose, because Lisa, that was her purpose. She loved my mom. And it was, this is what I'm talking about. Like, these are human beings that have had lives that are, varied, and some of them are not good people. Some of them are good people. They're all, we're talking about people. And we can't lump them into one thing. And anyway, we gotta wrap up. But how can we support you? How can we support the Kim Academy? What can we do to amplify your your mission here?
Well, this is great. Just being able to have this conversation and talk to you about it. Obviously, you see, I'm passionate. So please know, I guess the thing that I want, this is who I am. God love my husband. He puts up with all of this. But this is also who I am when I'm training. So this on-demand training, it won't be that same, that like Lucy's, the Linus and Lucy's teacher in the background. You're getting a personality. I'm not going to put you to sleep. I'm keeping everything, about 40 minutes a module. Just some will be shorter. So it's the Kim Academy keepinmindinc.com. Maybe you guys could put that somewhere. I don't know. How
we
you
will.
roll.
It'll be all up in the show notes.
Yeah.
It's for families, it's for caregivers, and it's for facilities and professionals. Everybody can take advantage of this, right?
And you can click on it. It'll be the family stuff I'm still uploading that. So we're building it right now. I've got the team approach for frontline caregivers posted. That's on demand, and a dementia sales advisor credential that's up there too. But like I said, I've got more things coming behind, and in the next 3, 5, I don't know when this is going to air, but it'll go on. If families click here, and there'll be stuff for them. And the first thing I am uploading is a significant tutorial on why to get the diagnosis, why it matters. I really want families to be so very aware that they need to fight for that, so that they know what they're doing.
I've got an action for everyone here. So if you have a loved one in a facility and you don't feel like there's enough training, tell them about the Kim Academy. Tell them that you think it's really good. Tell them that they should check into it, that you think it would be really helpful for your person to have that kind of interaction and that kind of lifestyle change, and that, let them know about it. You heard it here. Tell them that you think it's great and they need to check into it. That's what we can do for you, because we love our people, and that's why we call our show this. Why, Donald? Why? Why do we call our show?
Well, there's only one reason, and that is because love is powerful, love is contagious, and love conquers all. We thank everybody for listening today or viewing, and we definitely thank our guest, Ellen BELK. We hope if you loved what you saw right now to like, share, subscribe, do all those things, and definitely check out our No Country for Old People, and hopefully you can be part of that too.
And help us move that along, and that they all help each other, and have a wonderful day, and we'll see you and talk to you next time. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.